So tonight, the community meeting is with Arvada Fire, and we are hoping that Arvada PD will show up as well. Commander Mark Nazarick was scheduled to be here, but he is on duty, so he could be attending to matters within the city. So thank you all again for coming tonight. One of our big things this year is education, and a part of that education are these community meetings. So I'll turn it over to Tracy and Steve with Arvada Fire. So thank you all for coming in.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us. My name is Tracy Leyden with Arvada Fire, and this is Fire Marshal Stephen Parker here. And so he'll be answering some questions when we're done here. So we have about a 30-minute presentation. We'll do some discussion about maybe some concerns that you folks might have. Okay? So we'll get started here. So again, here's my information. Michelle, who is I work with closely, isn't able to make it. She's at a conference, and also Melissa Ryder from the city of Arvada will not be able to make it also. She's actually sick. I just talked to her this morning, so she didn't want to spread the germs, so I think we're all good there, right? All right. So let's talk about the Arvada Fire Protection District. Most of you folks know we've been around since the early 1900s. We're accredited, which means we are the top-notch fire departments. We make sure our trainings, everything's up to par. We have an executive board that goes through this, and it's not through here. It's actually in Texas who goes through all our records. We're an ISO 1 fire department, which is the best that you can get, and we're an all hazards department. What does that mean? When I talk all hazards, we cover hazmat, special tech, high rescue, low angle rescue, wildland, you name it, we do it. Okay? We actually even have boats. So. All right, we have 8 stations. The Station 9 is under construction right now, which is up on Wilkerson in 92nd Avenue, which will be opened up later this summer. The predicted date is August 22nd. All right, so our district here, we have various stations throughout here. The closest station that covers you folks right now is Station 7, which is located at 80th and Alkire, right by RV. Okay, I'm located at Station 8, which is in the Westwood subdivision. We're at 64th and Quaker. We're the second unit that comes in this neighborhood here. So what is urban interface? A wildland urban interface is a zone that transitions between wild, prairie, and human development. That's this area here, guys. Okay? How many of you guys are native Coloradans? Okay, how about native Arvadans? 0. Okay, either am I. But I want you to think about this area. I've lived in Arvada for 38 years. This used to be cow pastures. That's all it was. And so running on various calls, I was a volunteer. I started back in the 80s here. And so I think about all the calls that we ran up here was due to lightning strikes here. And we had grasses that ran here through, but that's all it was out here. But I want you to think about our progress over the last 30 years for Western Arvada. What's happened? An explosion. We've had homes being built everywhere. As long as there's a piece of grass, piece of land, we got houses coming in. Whoever thought we'd build north up by Rocky Flats there? I always tell folks, you grew up here, didn't you? You know where you live at, okay? But again, you know, we see this development here. It's great for us here because we have new community members that move from other parts, other states, other cities, maybe Metro Denver here. But communities in the WUI, wildland urban interface, are at risk of catastrophic fires due to present disruption in the ecology. So what's happened to our environment? You guys are seeing it right now. It is April. Have we had any snow this month? 0. That's concerning to all of us. I mean, looking at water, what we get our water from, I mean, we're getting snow in the mountains, but nothing in the city. And I mean, how many of you guys are watering your grass already? Probably quite a few of us. I have dogs, so I have to because they're tearing that thing up pretty quickly. But again, it's a serious issue that we're concerned about here. And when we look at this environment here now, we have with the development of homes being in here, and we're moving further and further to the west now. So the Ready, Set, Go program is a nationally recognized program. Ready is to be prepared, set to understand the threat, and goes getting out. And we're going to talk about that, okay? So as we look at the wildland urban interface here, we look at the different stations here. Stations 7, 8, and 9 are your wildland stations. Those are the stations that are going to be responding to this whole west side of the city here. We cover this area. All our folks are red carded. We're all certified. We have different levels of certification for our firefighters. I am an engine boss, which means I'm in charge of a crew of 3 individuals when we go out to fires, and we do get sent out. We're resourced to the state of Colorado. I've covered the whole western half of the U.S. on fires, from California all the way up to, yes, Nebraska, Oklahoma, okay? But everybody in our department is red carded, and again, we have different levels of management. We have some of our chiefs are certified. They're what we call the higher end management for our department there, and they actually go on deployments also, okay? But the responsibility of the residents. And that's what we're going to talk about. This is where we get to community engagement, okay? So the Ready, Set, Go program, strategies to address the wildland impact and development, reduce the potential fire intensity of vegetation that will influence it, and reduce the structure ignitability. And we're going to talk about all that stuff tonight here, okay? So the Ready, Set, Go program. Ready, Set, Go program is what can you do to make a difference here? Prepare your property to create a defensible space. Home radiation zone, start your home and work outward. What do they mean by that? Starting from your front door, guys. Spreading out. And we're going to talk about that first 5 feet there, okay? So know your fire basics here, and this is just some basic stuff here. What do we need to sustain fire? We need fuel, oxygen, heat, creates fire, right? And it can be influenced by fuel, weather, topography, which you guys have here. We have these rolling hills that run through here. So what happens when this stuff gets superheated, especially if we have a grass fire? It's going to climb. It's going to preheat that and start to move up there, okay? And I want you to think about, we just talked about moisture content. There's not much going on right now. We have some very dry grasses. As you can see, we've had some serious issues here in the city where we've had red flag warnings. How about last Friday? We had a critical red flag warning for the whole western half, or actually the Front Range, where we had everybody on standby. They were bringing resources from the west side of the state over to the Front Range here to assist in case we had a blowout, which we did. We had one down in the Springs. We had one out in Bent County. Okay, we had a lot of land that was lost out there, but it's all agriculture out there. Okay. So fuels are anything that'll burn, anything that's dry, dead vegetation, wood siding, roofing, fencing, trees, shrubs, landscaping mulch. And this is what we look at here. Fire spread, ambers, okay? How many of you guys remember the fire that we had up here at Leyden Ranch 6 years ago? Okay? How many of you guys remember how windy it was that night? It was extremely windy. We were blowing 40 to 50 miles an hour. I was on the first engine company that arrived here. I'm the one that pumped that fire that day. And so we had a crew. We were out there fighting fire until the rest of our resources came up. But I remember the amber chunks flying. When we showed up on that street there, it was so windy that the fire was laying down on the street. If that tells you anything, and it's like, wow, this is going to be fun. It was cold and it was windy. And everybody was doing their best job. We lost a structure and a half due to that. But we stopped it. But that was a lot of folks doing that. But think about the amount of water that was being poured on that due to that wind there. And again, what happened? We had amber chunks flying around. And they were going in the neighborhoods. We had our fire chief at the time was out there in his private vehicle. We had police officers with fire extinguishers chasing ambers that were getting into mulch piles down in other neighborhoods. And those were concerns because what happened, that would have took off and ran in the neighborhood. And those were big concerns for us there. Okay? So fire spread, ambers, firebrands, radiant heat, and flame contact. Okay? So here's that defensible space here we're talking about. We're going to talk about different zones here. So zone 1 is called the immediate zone. That's at 0 to 5 feet. That's working from your home out. And so we look at some of the stuff here. It's effective defensible spacing here. Okay? What can we do to make our home safer? Getting away from certain products that we're using, mulches. Because I want you to think about mulch. It's great and fine and dandy when it's nice and wet, but what happens when that stuff starts to dry out, which it typically does? Is that going to be a fire hazard now? So we were recommending that folks start changing over to hardscaping, such as rock, that type of stuff there. Or if you're going to put plants down, use something that has a lot of moisture content to it, okay? Little experiment, as you can see there, mulch piles, pine needles. How many folks have pine trees in your yards? Okay? We'll talk about that here in a bit, but again, those are potential issues here, right? So then we look at the zone 2, which is the 5 to 30 feet. That's the immediate. Okay? That's your backyard. That's the side of your house there. What can we do to protect it? As you can see, this is a pretty nice backyard. I wish I had something like that. How about you guys? It's like, yeah, man, that looks like a golf course there. Okay? But you can see that homeowner has done a great job. They're using, again, hardscape, rock, stone. They have some grass, and then once they get out in the outskirts there. Okay? But these are all things that we can improve our homes on here. And these are just ideas, okay? Then we have the extended zone. Zone 2, 30 to 100 feet. That's looking out. This is a resident here in Leyden Rock. Did a pretty good job mowing, didn't he? He actually did his house, and you can see he did quite a few houses. He's about 4 houses down the road there. It took him a day, he said, but he got it done. Why? There was a concern about those fields there, and you can see the downslope on that hill there. And what happens if that grass did catch on fire? Because we're right on 82nd here. Unfortunately, not everybody is what? Very safe. And sometimes we get people that flick cigarettes out, and that's their concern there, okay? So again, this individual did a great job protecting his yard there, okay? All right, so this is behind my house. No, it's not a jungle, guys, okay? But this is in West Arvada also. But cut back that green, cut back, clear the grasses, 10 to 30 feet behind your fence line. And so what happens here is this is an open space that's controlled by HOA and the city. And so I started this 10 years ago because I saw the typical hazard of what can happen, because behind us there's cattails, and they did catch on fire 20 years ago. We had kids shooting fireworks, and it took the whole field out. And so I made an effort to go ahead and start contacting my neighbors. Hey, how would you guys like to get involved and start cutting behind our fences here and making it safer? And of course, just like any other new project, I don't really want to do that. So I went and bought a cheap lawnmower at a yard sale. Cut mine, cut my neighbor. And then my neighbors came over, why are you doing that? I said, I'm protecting my house. Well, why are you doing that? Well, do you guys remember that fire? And, oh, yeah. And so when people started seeing what we were doing, I got buy-in from all my neighbors on that side, which is about 7 houses. I call it the back 40. My wife goes, why do you call it the back 40? It's on the back side of the fence there, okay? But again, you can see these grasses. If they're not contained, what happens to them? Especially when we get to July, they cure out, and that's going to be a problem. So if we start early by doing basic maintenance, starting here next month, into May, early June, we start cutting back those fuels. And if you do it once every 5 weeks, it's not a chore anymore. It's pretty easy to do. And that's what I have my neighbors doing now. They're all participating in this, okay? So consider the amber thread as we just discussed here, because those ambers can travel. We just sat through a class, Chief Parker and myself sat through a class last week with climatologists from from NCAR up in Boulder. And we were just talking about amber travel. The fires that happened last year, 2 years ago, 40 miles one traveled. That's a long haul, 40 miles. Okay, so again, anything can happen, but we just want to make sure that we're protecting ourselves and protecting your community here by removing these types of fuels here. And we talked about pine needles. I know it's hard to see there. I need glasses too. But think about those pine needles, and they accumulate in your roof there. How many of you guys get in there and clean those pine needles out if you have leaves, pine needles? Okay, and that's something we should all participate in, because if we do get a fire amber in there, now we have that what? Potential for ignition source there. Trying to avoid that by doing that basic maintenance we talked about in the fall. Once it's cleaned out, all our leaves drop, then going and cleaning that out and keeping that up twice a year there, okay? So as we look at some of this here, clearing the gutters, the roof lines here, how many guys have any dormer windows, maybe something similar to that where you have that overhang? And we do get an accumulation of items like that. And we want to make sure that, yes, and I know some of you folks might be a little older and you shouldn't be on the ladder, believe me, okay? We don't want you on the ladder. Maybe have a neighbor who maybe is a lot younger out there to get up there and assist with that. But go ahead and clean that area out there, because again, that's a potential fuel source there, and that's what we don't want. Okay. All right, so maintenance is important. So home hardening, you're going to hear that a lot, because that's the subject that's been coming up. The state of California has been working on this for years. I want you to think about how many fires happen in the state of California. That's a hot pot. Every year we hear about the fires, okay? And so the state of California, many, many years ago, started working on a change on building materials. And it's required now. All homes that are built are required for a building change now. And they've gone to screening. This is one of the things we're going to pass around. These screens are the screens that are used for protection in your eaves. We all have that soffit that hangs over. What does it do? It releases the heat out of your attic there, okay? But as you can see, when you start seeing these things here, these have been actually exposed to ambers, and they stopped here. Most of us have that type of slat. If you guys look at the soffit there, it's just a slat, okay? Can we retrofit those? Probably can. And again, that's something that you have to look at as an individual homeowner. Yes, it's going to cost a little bit of money, but we're making our home safer. As I talked to one of the other HOA groups I talked to last week, there is a tax incentive now from the state of Colorado. If you guys look at that, when you're doing your taxes, it says at the very end, did you do any wildland urban interface updates? And you can write that stuff off. So something to think about, talk to your tax accountant about that, because he's the one or she's the one who's going to decide if you can write that stuff off there. But again, these are things that you can do to improve your home. The other things are going to be looking at Class A roofing, asphalt shingles, okay? None of us have the wooden shingles anymore. Those have been outlawed for many, many years because of the devastation from various fires there, okay? And so everything's gone to either the asphalt, the terracotta tiles. They also have their faults there also, because sometimes we do have those inlets where they can sneak in. And then also I'm trying to think of it, it's like a clay tile, roofing tile. But all these are good for what? Hail damage, okay? Especially those tiles and the Class A roofs. But all these things we can use, folks, making our home safer there, okay? So the Ready, Set, Go program, we just gone to the R, is being prepared, knowing what to do, getting that property ready to roll. It's ready. Now, let's talk about S, situational awareness. We do have something going on. How many of you folks received the pre-evacuation notice December 30th? Yeah, I think most of the western half of the city got it. If you live anything north of, basically, I'd say 72nd Avenue, you got that notice. I know my family got the notice. I'm up there working on the fire. My wife's going, what do we do? I said, well, I'll let you guys know, but I think you're okay. But what's that evacuation notice tell us? Be ready to go. And as one of the groups we talked to last week there, this was huge. We're like, what do we need to do? And that's why we're here, to talk about that. We're going to talk about the Ready, Set, Go bag, which is going to be available to you guys in the back door. It's a blue bag that you can take home. We've had these out here for 2 years now. I recommend you take some home. Take it to your neighbors there. But it's just a brief description of what to take with you. And we're going to talk about the 6 P's of evacuation, what things to bring with you. But one of the stories that came out at the fire when we were out there, I was working in a different division on that fire, but one of our chiefs was up there. He was with another individual from another fire department, and they were sitting in a command van on a block as watching the firefighters do their job, and they were watching this one lady who was sitting there. And she'd go in her house, and she'd come back out, empty-handed. Go in her house, come back empty-handed. And finally, they went in and asked her, ma'am, are you okay? She goes, yeah, I just don't know what to bring. And they go, okay, let's walk you through this. Do you have pets? Most of us do, okay? Is there anything valuable, like your jewelry maybe? Do you have some family albums that you maybe want to bring? All this stuff, if you get that pre-evacuation notice, get your car loaded, get it ready to go. My recommendation is if that comes up to that, it's time to go. I prefer that you leave earlier than later. Get moving. If you have a place to stay, great. If not, I'm sure we'll talk to the commander here, but do we have evacuation points that maybe you can meet at? And we're going to talk about that here in a second. But maybe family members, because what happened during that fire, it was December. Kids were on winter break. What would you guys do if your kids, and you're at work and your children are at home? Or would they know where to meet at? Cell phone service was down in that community also, okay? So all these things were just a combination of what happened. And we'll talk about Marshall here in a second. Hey, but again, it's one of those things that situational awareness, knowing what's going on in your community. Follow the news. We're going to talk about the new alert system that's coming out. It's just, they had a story about it today, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Okay, but all this stuff is relevant there, that we have that situational awareness. Know that something's going on. I know I did, because I was working that day, and what did I do? I saw a plume at 10 o'clock in the morning, north of Rocky Flats. It wasn't our county. I already knew it was in Boulder County, but I was like, man, we're going to be working later today. And we didn't think it was going to be that bad, guys, and it was. It was devastating, okay? But again, situational awareness. All right, so the 6 Ps. People and pets. Make sure everybody's accounted for. Again, we talked about animals. You have dogs, cats, make sure that you have their carriers ready to go. Have food for them, okay? As we saw what happened, we had a lot of dogs that were running around up in Superior, Louisville, Lafayette, okay? Proper papers, phone numbers, important documents, insurance paperwork. That's probably pretty important, right? I know most of us have stuff on our phone here, but having that documentation, okay? Phone numbers. I don't know how many of you guys still have a phone book. I'm still old school. I like to have that. But again, we have those contact information there, okay? Prescriptions, vitamins, and eyeglasses. Yes, if you're on prescriptions, we need to make sure we're taking that stuff with us because we're not sure when we're going to be able to get it, if we can get a script refilled. But have all the stuff ready to go, gang. Have it ready to go with you, okay? All right, eyeglasses. All right, pictures. I just talked about that. How many of you guys have kids here? Probably a good chunk of the room here. Yeah. Do you have valuable pictures of your children that you might have on the front wall when you walk in? I know I do. It's my little shrine of my girls and my son. Okay? But again, those are important to me. I'd probably grab those right away. Can we replace those? Probably so. Okay? But again, having that stuff ready to go. Okay? All right, personal computers, hard drives. And I'm going to talk extensively about this, and I'm going to bring up a video here a little bit that you guys can watch when you get home. But Mr. Mark Colbrook, how many of you guys remember him? Channel 9, retired. He did a video, a collaboration with the city of Arvada, West Metro Fire, Arvada Fire, in the state of Colorado and Jefferson County. They put a video together after the Marshall Fire because there was so much devastation. People didn't know what to do. And he walks you through every step what to do. And I encourage everybody in this room and people who are watching to actually watch this. It's about 30 minutes, but there's a lot of great information in there, especially how to protect your house, how to protect yourself, because we're using our cameras, we're using our video cameras to film everything in our home. So we can prove that, yes, I did have that Maserati. I know you got you guys over there. Okay? All right, in plastic, credit cards, ATM cards, and cash. Making sure you have that information. Having that stuff for you. Because what happens if you don't have a place to stay? Now you have to stay at a local Holiday Inn or one of the hotels that's locally in the area. That way you have that to take with you. Because I don't always carry my credit cards with me. I put them in a safe and I leave them in there. That means I just don't spend them, right? Okay. All right. So that's the 6 P's of evacuation there. All right. So pre-evacuation, I just covered that. What does it mean to you? Do you have a plan? How many of you guys have a plan? Okay, a couple of you folks. And that's kind of where we're here, to have a plan. I know we're talking about, we never hope this happens again, but again, there's a potential. There's always a potential for a fire like that. You know, it was just like the 100-year flood. They always talk about that. Well, again, the potential for a fire here. We're doing our best to protect you folks. But again, sometimes we're going to be outweighed by Mother Nature. And she's always going to win, as we found out that day. Okay? But again, have a plan. Does your family have a meeting place? Are we meeting at RV? Are we meeting at the NAC? Are we meeting at the King Supers on 64th and McIntyre? These are all perfect locations because they're large. Okay? But again, this is something that we'll bring up, the city's going to bring up here is evacuations. What do we need to do? Where can we meet at? What's going to be the safest way for you folks to get out of here? Because what do we have here? 3 ways in? Something like that? Sound familiar? How many of you guys know how to get all the way out of here or zigzag to the neighborhood and get to the backside? Okay, that's my favorite. You know, I'm not picking on people, but when we get to car accidents here and, somebody shows up and they go, well, that's the only way, that's my way home. You guys are blocking the road with your fire truck. I go, well, ma'am, you're going to have to go a different way. Or I don't know how to go a different way. This is the only way I know. And this is on a regular basis. So I always tell folks, have different ways to get home, different ways to get out of your neighborhood. But again, folks, just, have a meeting place. Because again, for you folks that have kids, maybe you have teenage kids that might be at work, or maybe they're doing some type of sport at the high school. But again, we want to make sure that you guys are meeting together, having a safe place there. Because that was one of the issues that also came up in Marshall. We had a lot of people that were trying to find family relatives. And think about that when we don't have cell phone service. Okay? So the Ready, Set, Go bag, which they're out here for you folks here, there's a little thing on the back there and it tells you all about what to bring here and just kind of discuss the stuff that we had just discussed. But again, create your own action plan there, folks, for yourselves. Make it ready for your family. Make sure that everybody understands what we're doing, okay? So again, the go now. Now we have to go. This is when you get that evacuation notice that says, yes, it's time for you to leave, okay? Be prepared. As we call it, backing up like a firefighter. How many of you guys have any firefighters in your family? None, huh? Okay, you're missing out. All right, so one thing about firefighters, you'll know about us, and my kids are the same way, is we always back our vehicles in, okay? And my daughter's the same way. She backs her car in and out. When we're going to a parking spot, she backs it. Why do we do that? Quick access, right? Load your car and ready to go. So again, I mean, we talked about that pre-evacuation notice. Again, having that car backed up, loading your stuff to go, so when it is ready to go, it's time to go. Let's go. You got a clear shot out, okay? All right. Get your go kit. You know, some of that part of that video I was discussing with Mr. Colbrick was he was talking about having something in your front closet. Most of us have a cloak closet right by the front door there. Having a little briefcase, maybe one of those lightweight safes that are fire resistant that you can use to put your documents, those type of things in there. You can put your hard disk in there. Your flash drives, whatever you have that has all that documentation we just discussed here, we can put that in there, and that way you can grab it and ready to go there, okay? Cooperate with your local authorities. That has got to be the biggest one that I have a concern with. Why am I saying this? How many of you guys remember the Spring Mesa fire 2 years ago? How many people did not want to leave, and they were out there trying to fight fire? Do you think that's going to hinder our operations as a firefighter? It is. And now I have to worry about trying to get a person out of there. He's trying to put fire out. He has no idea what he's doing, but he's got a hoe or a rake and he's trying to do something. I understand he's trying to protect his home, but again, it's one of those things, let us do our job. Because now I have to worry about this person, that person, to make sure we get them out safely. Okay? So if the police department tells you to leave, please leave. Okay? All right. So the WUI risk, as we can see, this is West Arvada. That's that yellow there. And we get into that, that's Highway 93 right there. But the western half of Arvada and unincorporated Jeffco placed in a high-risk category due to extreme dry conditions. That hasn't changed since last year because of our drought. And we're in the same boat, and it's actually going to intensify here. But again, these are things that we look at. Populated areas in Arvada have, on average, a greater risk than 50% of the communities in Colorado. We look outside, guys, especially when we get outside to the western side of here. What do we have? Highway 93, dry grasses, okay? And these are all issues. This is, again, what happens if we have, as we saw, I was actually out of state, and one of my gals I deal with Spring Mesa called me. She goes, "Hey, Tracy, what's going on out there?" And I go, "Well, I can't talk to you right now. I'm not sure what's going on in Colorado. I'm actually in Maryland right now." And what happened? We had an accident. And it actually had a fire. It was a fatal accident where somebody passed away in that. But it caused a fire, and that fire got into the Pioneer property. The fire was put out quickly by the crews that were out there. But again, we can have any of these things happen in our community, and if we have a little bit of wind, then we have a problem, okay? But again, we want to make sure that we're keeping ourselves safe by prevention here, okay? So speaking of Spring Mesa, calls came in at 3:42. It was on a Sunday afternoon. I remember because I was watching a Bronco game, okay? Temperature's lovely, 50 degrees for October. Red flag warning had been issued. Winds at 40 miles an hour, gusts at 60 to 75 miles an hour. You guys remember that day we had that fire in Marshall. The winds were pushing 100 miles an hour. Can you imagine trying to stand up to that? None of us were. We were getting our butts kicked out there, okay? All right. 40 acres burned, no loss of life or structures, mutual aid response. What's that mean? If we have a mutual aid response, we have other fire departments, we have agreements between our fire departments and our districts here that come help us. City of Westminster, Coal Creek Fire up the road here, West Metro Fire, Fairmont Fire. If we call for something, hey guys, we need help. They're gonna come because we were overwhelmed by that resources. What happened? That fire started at Highway 93, got into Pioneer and took off. And now it was pushing towards that community there. We had all our resources there. But again, if we can get more folks to help us out, which we did rely on, we had those folks to assist us. Fire was contained, okay? There's your burn pattern there. As you can see where it took off there. This is Patridge Park, which is just to the south of us over here, okay? And then that's the Spring Mesa neighborhood right up to the top there. You can see where the fire burned at, went right into the park and stopped there. These were our structural engines that we put in place here to protect those houses there. All right, So property on the left was not mitigated. Damage to that property was 100 feet. I want you guys to look at that picture closely. What happened with the short grasses there? It burned out. It never made it to the fence. And this goes back to education. We had been working with this community for a couple of years now with the HOA with Spring Mesa and the citizens that live on that backside there, because we knew there was opportunity for something to happen like that. And what happened? Those neighbors went out there that summer and started cutting their grasses. They paid attention. Hey, we can do this. And they did. And so what happened? No houses were lost there. The only thing lost was a 100-foot of fence. That's it. And that was due to tall grasses that the individual felt he didn't need to do it. Okay? But again, that's what we look for. And that makes a huge difference there. It's called defensible space. Okay? So make a difference. We talked about those ignition zones there, projecting out. Zone 1, Zone 2, Zone 3, pushing out from your house outward. Okay? History of Colorado fires. And I got to tell you, as a wildland firefighter, what are we seeing? The intensity is getting worse every year. Severity is getting hard. Our time, it used to be many, many years, and now it's almost every year now we're having a major fire. Waldo, 2012, 347 homes destroyed, 2 people were killed. Okay, 2012, High Park, 259 homes destroyed. Black Forest, 2013, 489 homes destroyed, 2 people were killed. 2020, Cameron Peak, 224 homes, 208,000 acres lost. East Troublesome, 366 homes gone. And then we get into the most devastating fire in Colorado history, Marshall, December 20th. 1,041 homes destroyed. 2 people were killed. 6,300 acres burned up. The big one I'm looking at here, guys, this was a crazy fact, and I just found that out this week. As I said, we sat with a climatologist last week. Rate of spread, a football field every 20 seconds. Think about that. I didn't come up with this number. This was a gentleman who put a formula together, and that's what he figured out. Every 20 seconds, we were losing a football field. That's the day after. That was New Year's Eve until it started snowing. We got snow about 1 o'clock. At that point there, we were able to come back home because we were pretty much out. But you can see the devastation, guys. We're assisting people the best we could that day, the day after the fire. Whatever personal belongings we could find. Hey, can you help me do this? A lot of animals were moving out. People had horses and stuff that actually survived, dogs, chickens, ducks, you name it. We were helping to move them out, okay? But again, you can see the devastation that happened that day. I mean, I can't even describe it. The best thing I can say, it was like a war. That's what it looked like. I'm driving down McCaslin. How many of you guys have been down that road heading towards Costco? Yeah. And looking at burned out vehicles in the middle of the street, it looked like a third world country out there. Never seen that in my lifetime. But again, it hit me pretty hard. As I said, this is our community. Why did this happen? Okay. Leyden Rock and Leyden Ranch. Some of these properties look familiar to you guys? I can just look across the window out here and see that. Again, mitigation, folks. Doing your part. Defensible space.
Within the city of Arvada, we don't have any adopted enforceable codes that the fire department or the city can come in to an HOA or a development and say, you have to do this. So as Tracy had alluded to throughout this whole presentation, it's, you know, we have to get buy-in from the communities and the HOAs in order to do it as individual smaller communities within the larger city of Arvada. I'd love to be able to have enough staff and the ability to come out and enforce codes, but unfortunately at this time we don't have that ability. We're working on it. but that it's a long process to get new codes adopted. Yeah, and I can't speak to the HOA, but what I can speak to is, the timing of the Marshall Fire. When everybody, not only HOAs, but us at the fire department, the cities, we're all budgeting way ahead of that, and then this hit late in the year. So once those budgets are set, it takes time to reallocate those funds if you identify that as a priority. Not saying that there isn't money there, and I'm not speaking for Leyden or Candelas or any community, but it has to, like you said, take money in order to do that, but you have to reallocate it this late in the game. But yeah, now's the time to start planning for later this year, or excuse me, next year and future years. Because a lot of times what happens, not only here, but nationwide, a lot of people do it for the first year, 2 years, 3 years after a major event, then they get comfortable because something hasn't happened. It has to be a continual effort year after year and hope that nothing bad happens.
And you may see me, I'm not the creeper, guys. You may see me, I walk through this community. I'm in a lot of communities, so if you see a guy showing up in a fire department shirt, that's typically me, and I'm walking back there because I am actually assessing the areas back there and make sure that everything is okay back there. If I see a problem, I can pass it on to Katie. I can pass it on to her, or Ben. I can pass that information on, hey, I see a concern here. Can you guys maybe address that? So,
as Tracy alluded to earlier, best case scenario, if we get to that point where it's a pre-evacuation, that's the time to leave. Because if you're going to wait until we tell you, the police department says it's time to go, it's probably too late, and then everybody's going to be doing that. So during that pre-evacuation period, it's going to be a little bit calmer. You're not going to be as excited. You will be excited, but you won't be as excited as a full evacuation. That's going to be a little bit easier to get out. Now, to your comment about that accident that happened on 93, when we get fires like we saw at Spring Mesa, we're going to have Arvada Police, we're going to have Jeffco Sheriff, and they have mutual aid agencies also. Superior can be coming in. They'll have police officers at intersections to help the flow of traffic, and we're not relying on those traffic signals at that point. Because that's what they did during the Spring Mesa fire, is as that community was evacuating, they had police officers strategically located. They do a great job at evacuating. I mean, they evacuated 2 entire cities and were successful at it. So I'm not going to say it's going to be perfect, but as Tracy spoke to earlier, just be patient and listen to the emergency responders in those situations. Yeah, and typically, when we get to an evacuation phase, the firefighters are going to be out there trying to mitigate the problem. It is almost solely going to fall on law enforcement for the evacuation piece. And unfortunately, Commander Nazaric couldn't be here to speak on the police department's behalf, but I'm very comfortable in saying that that's one of their primary roles in helping getting people out.
all right, so how can we make change? That's why we're here. Okay? Community involvement, HOA involvement. This group is great to work with, believe me. I've been at this for a while, and between Christina and Ben now, you guys have done a great job here, and they're actually listening to what we have, our suggestions, and that's been a big change for us in the last 5 years. So again, making that, you guys passing this information, you guys made that decision to come here and hear this information. Now it's time for you to pass this on to your neighbors. Okay, this will be available also, but I want you to pass this information. Hey, this is what they talked about. This PowerPoint, it's going to be available to you guys. I'm going to pass it on, and you guys can pass it on to your neighbors. It'll be on your website there, and you guys can address it with your neighbors. But it's just conversation. Let's bring that up, because we are starting to see a change, and we want to prevent that. Okay, so homeowners buy-in, you guys are here. I'm glad to hear all this discussion. This is what we like to hear. We want to create a solution there if we can. Okay. Defensible space, we just talked about, removing that yard debris. How many of you guys know on May 7th, you guys are having a collection point here? Yeah, it'll be right here on the street. We'll have a rollaway 30-yard trailer that'll be out there for you to take your organic materials, which means lawn stuff, bushes, branches, all that stuff will be at your disposal from, is it 8 o'clock? 9 to 3 on May 7th, Saturday. We had this event last year at our training center. We had folks bringing stuff here from this community and also from Spring Mesa. We filled up 130-yard rollaway. That was a lot of material. And so again, if you guys are able to come out and bring those things there to dispose of that, bring it out. It's available to you guys. They're doing a great job to bring that out to you folks here, no charge. Okay. All right. Pine needles we discussed. Limb up. What does limb up mean? Okay. Yeah. Those fuels, those pine trees we just discussed here. 3 to 4 feet. Start cutting those branches, clearing that dead pine needles away. Because how many of you guys are campers here? Okay. 1 person. 2 people. Is that your favorite fuel to use when you're lighting your your fire at camp? Yeah, it is, because it's super dry. I know it works. But again, think about that underneath there. So limb up those trees, guys. Okay? 3 to 4 feet. Get those branches off the ground there. All right. Cleaning those gutters we discussed. Using fire-resistant materials such as rock and high moisture plants there. Removing items underneath your deck there, because again, we see those accumulations of pine needles, leaves, and stuff that blew it through the fall, and they don't get cleaned out. Okay? All right, so resources available. You guys can go to the ready.gov plan, Ready, Set, Go program. Jefferson County, if you go on there, there's a wild mitigation plan that's available. Okay, that was just rewritten. NFPA Firewise tools. And this, I'm going to bring up to you guys here, has just changed. And, okay. Lookout.
So smart911.com.
Okay. The one.
That's replacing the former code red.
So do you have to re-register? Or do you
You have to re-register.
Oh, okay. Is it in the back?
That is not.
It's not, but I have a QR code.
Yep, thank you. I have it on my phone too, just for that reason. If you need to, you can scan it off one of our phones here, and that'll pull that up for you. It takes you right to the registration, and then you register your phones there, okay? It's lookoutalert.co, and that went into effect last week. Okay. Yeah, they had a press conference today with Jefferson County. Okay. All right, and otherwise you can contact us at arvadafire.co.gov, or you can reach us at 303-424-3012. Okay? And this is the video I was talking about here. If you guys research YouTube TV, go to Let's Talk Fire Mitigation. Mark Holbrook, one of the county commissioners, one of our battalion chiefs, Todd Hyatt, and then Captain Brendan Finnegan, we call him Finney, from West Metro. These gentlemen are having a discussion about mitigation. I highly recommend that you spend the time, 30 minutes, and watch that. It's just really good information. As we figured out when we had a lot of loss of structures there, the biggest issue that's coming up right now is insurance. And this was some of the stuff that was brought up during that particular interview there. So again, this information is available to you guys. Okay? All right. So together we can make a difference. All right. Here's our contact information. If you ever need to get a hold of me, you can reach me at that number there, 303-880-9336. That's my personal cell phone. Or my email address is Tracy, Tracy .leyva, Leyva, at arvadafireco.gov. And you can reach me anytime on that. If you have an issue or you feel like you need to have me come out and look at your home, I'm here. We'll come out, take a look at your property, and make some suggestions, or if it looks great, we'll tell you it looks great there, okay? And I don't know if you guys saw this last week. You know that throwaway paper that all of us get in our driveways? That's last week. There's some good information in there, okay? If not, you can go to the Arvada Press, pull it up. There's a 2-page article about fire mitigation. Yep. All right.